Well, good afternoon, everybody. I just realized I needed to tuck my earplug in there. How's everybody doing? Welcome into the show today, you guys. Oh my gosh, we have a wonderful show for everybody today. I have my buddies, Brian Minnick and Long Island Bigfoot here in the studio today. We're going to be talking about the Pine Barrens and their recent trip to the Pine Barrens. Now, we're not talking about the Pine Barrens in New Jersey. We're talking about Long Island, New York. They just took an expedition out there this week, and they had some Bigfoot activity, and we're going to get into that and information on the Pine Barrens and the surrounding area and all the cryptid activity out there. So you guys, this is going to be such a cool show today, and I can't wait. You know, both of these fellows have been on my show a couple times. Okay. And we have talked about Montauk and Camp Hero. Brian is with Montauk is Strange. You guys will remember us talking about Plum Island the last time he was here. And of course, Long Island Bigfoot. We've all done some boots on the ground research together out there in Long Island. So y'all buckle up. We're in for a treat today. And yes, I hope you guys, I hope y'all enjoy the show on Monday. Okay. Monday, we had a great show with my friend Bryce, who came on, and she and I talked about Lake Lanier and all the lost civilizations underneath these man-made lakes around the United States. So if you guys missed that, please go back and watch it. I watched it this morning, actually, and I was pretty impressed, y'all. That was a good show. If I do say so myself, it was a good show. And also, I did post a members only video last night. If you guys are a member of the Hunt Club, there is a video up there that I just posted. I think it's called, Are You Ready to Rumble? Okay, so golly, I feel like I'm like sitting here fiddling with myself like I wasn't ready when the camera came on just then, y'all. That was crazy. Okay, but all right, well, let's see. If you guys would like to follow along with all of my shows and everything, please go over to my website, and I got an archive of all of my shows there. And I do have some events coming up. If you guys would like to come meet me over at the Myrtle Beast Bigfoot Fest, that's coming up. I think it's next week. It's coming up really soon in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. It's going to be, I think it's at the 4 Point Sheraton. I think it's on the beach down there in South Carolina. So if you guys are going to be in the area, come see me. And then also in July, I will be at the Full Disclosure Now conference coming up down in St. Petersburg, Florida. And so get your tickets now. Okay, get your tickets now. And there's a discount code. And you guys can find that on my website if you are interested in getting tickets to that and come and hanging out with me and all the other disclosure advocates down there from all different backgrounds, far and wide. Okay, well, let's get to our show today, because we're going to be talking about the Pine Barrens and cryptid encounters within those Pine Barrens. And they have a dark, seedy history, actually. I was just kind of talking backstage with Brian and Mike, and there's a lot going on out there, y'all. And no wonder there's a bunch of cryptids. Probably some crime going on out there, too. The Pine Barrens are pine forests and otherwise barren and agriculturally challenging areas throughout the United States from Florida to Maine. Known as the Atlantic Coast Pine Barrens, the most, well, that's the one that's from Maine to Florida. Okay. The most well-known Pine Barrens in North America would be the New Jersey Pine Barrens, known for having tons of cryptids like the Jersey Devil, Dogman, and Bigfoot. An equally cryptid-filled area is known as the Central Pine Barrens, and that's in Long Island, New York. That's where Brian and Long Island Bigfoot Mike were this past week. They joined MT Paranormal and the Cameraman Crew on a Bigfoot and cryptid investigation, and in the Central Pine Barrens. They had some pretty incredible encounters. We're going to hear about those today. So, and of course, You guys, Brian has written a book called Montauk is Strange. If you guys haven't already purchased that book, we're going to put some links in the chat today, and it's down in the description box if you guys would like to purchase his book. Please subscribe to his channel, Montauk is Strange, on YouTube, and Mike's channel, Long Island Bigfoot, on YouTube as well. Please help me welcome to the show my good buddies, Brian from Montauk is Strange and Long Island Bigfoot Mike. What's up, y'all?
Hey. Hey, thanks for having us. This is awesome.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for being here.
Of course.
Yeah, I was almost late. I was in there eating my chicken fingers for lunch, Mike.
Tater logs.
I know. I was all discombobulated when I turned the camera on today, and I was so busy.
I'm always that way.
Yeah,
daytime chaos.
Yeah, big time. Well, man, so you guys have been up to a lot lately, and getting out in the field and doing some boots on the ground research, and I love hearing about that stuff. And so I figured maybe we could talk about that a little bit today. If y'all are down.
Oh yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, tell me, okay, Brian, what's been going on with you? Tell me about your book. I know that we promoted it last time you were here. It's been a while. It's been a couple of months.
Yeah, definitely.
About Plum Island.
It's been more exploring. We haven't stopped, but I've been working on the second part of it, because I kind of left off halfway through a lot of the stuff, especially like our trips out there. So I got like 45 more trips since the first 30. And then, there's all the people that I've been talking to. People are coming to me with all kinds of info, documents, pictures, stories, locals, and from afar. So I've just been taking it all in and categorizing it as best I can and working it in to that section, where I get stuff from other people. But I'm going to eventually have to turn off the faucet of information, because it's just so much. But some of the best stuff I've ever got has been recently, and I was really excited to share it as soon as I can.
Oh my goodness. Okay, well then I know you're probably going to save it. You maybe write another book or something, but I mean, so you're getting new information that you were not aware of before when you wrote the first book.
Tons, and not only info, but documents, pictures, from government documents, pictures. I'm going to print all that stuff, and also stories from people and all kinds of little odds and ends, just cool, really cool stuff. Mm-hmm. And so, we're going to do the part 2, and that's probably it. But, it's like that'll be a good portion of everything. So, but other than that, me and Mike have been going out still. We went to the west side of Camp Hero, which is nobody ever sets foot in. It's like 200 extra acres on top of the 468 acres. That was the former base, Army and Air Force base. But now there's this west woods preserve. So we just set foot in there. I mean, it was the first time I've ever set foot in there, and we were out there for a couple hours, me and Mike. So that was cool. We found some stuff back there too.
Oh, very cool. Well, this is okay. So I'm showing the audience right now. If you're watching live on the video right now, where this is the radar tower. Now, is it true the radar tower has the radar has collapsed now, or is gone, or is taken down?
No, not yet.
No, it's I didn't check today, but I could check on the Montauk Lighthouse live web camera, and you could kind of see it on one frame in the background. Now I kind of want to check, because every time I go, I'm like, oh,
it's just falling apart. It's piece by piece, but it's sturdy.
It's losing panels.
Oh yeah, I think I brought a couple of pieces of metal home with me, just a little radiation for my bags on the trip home.
Yep. Yeah, we get people from all over the world that ask us for pieces of that.
Oh really?
Oh yeah.
I always forget. I should just auction those off or just give them away.
Yeah.
Yes, you can have your little piece of Camp Hero and the Montauk Project, unfortunately. But for people who aren't familiar with the Montauk program and stuff, would y'all like to do it? Just tell the audience briefly. I mean, I know we've talked about it here before, but Brian, do you want to tell everybody?
Stranger Things is based off of the loosely based off of the original book series. There was a couple of whistleblowers that it was an Army base 3 times over. The Army came 3 times. And it was an Air Force base with the most high-tech radar in the world at the time. And, responsible for the beginning of the internet itself in the 1950s, the very first stages, and just the things that they learned there kind of spread across the world. See that pole on top, the dipole antenna, that's an omnidirectional microwave antenna. And that's essentially the same as the 5G cell towers in every neighborhood around the world. That was one of the first working, examples of that. And with that, they learned it also affects the human mind, of course, because they are microwaves. Obviously there's an effect on nearby electronics. So there's also an effect on the mind. So there was a lot of things learned at Montauk that kind of spread across the planet. And just the land itself, we've been digging into like, the ancient part of Montauk, why this place was chosen in the first place. And there's always been a lot of, information on a deep ancient underground or ties to ancient Egypt. And you have ley line crossings and everything is said to be there, vortex. So there's a lot to it. There's so much to it. Oh yeah, that's a great map right there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's the ley line map. Yeah, my friend Bryce was here on Monday, and we were talking about ancient Egypt in the United States. Of course, we got into the discussion about lost civilizations that were buried, purposely drowned out underneath man-made gigantic lakes across the country, especially here in the South. We've got a bunch of them, and we showed some examples, and we have newspaper articles that show that. The historical societies, the universities, the local governments, all were very much aware of ancient Egyptian temples and artifacts and all sorts of things that were here. And a lot of these mounds, they covered the mounds that probably had giant bones in them as well. And we don't know what all was in those things. They said they excavated most of them, but what do they do with all of the contents? And there's definitely been an erasure of history through these lakes. And there's just been a concerted effort.
Lake Michigan, I think, in the bottom, they found some stuff.
Yeah.
And like you said, like the Mississippi mound culture, and like I don't know, Memphis, Tennessee, that's like an Egyptian name. And even in Montauk, like Mike will tell you, there's a lot of street names and stuff, like Egypt Lane, and even the Montauk's tribal leaders' last names are Pharaoh. It's a very rare name, only found in Egypt, like one or two in Scotland. But and they've always been the Pharaoh. So there is some, like they had really good oral tradition over the 10,000 years they were here. And some of it ties to, there's some talk about it being tied to ancient Egypt. Some came a long time ago. So
I love this. I love this. We are slowly unraveling all this ancient Egyptian culture that we've had here on this continent. Back way before Columbus ever set foot.
Speaking of that,
rode on the ocean blue in 1492.
Yeah, speaking of that, there's said to be pyramids in Montauk, and then we just found a place. We just found a place that we could never find. Like, it's hidden in plain sight. But what's it called, Mount Montauk or whatever?
Yeah, Montauk Mountain Montauk Mountain.
Something to the effect, and it's pretty layered up, like you know. And you got to think back, like you're talking about drowning out places, other places I've seen that are so active with energy, and they happen to be quarries, and like it's where humans have come through and cut, and you got to wonder what was there previously, and most people just don't know, so why not go in and cut it up, and then they mix it in with cement and whatever else they do, or they take it and they just ship it off and use it for different things. But who knows? Maybe they were cutting up something that was of significance, like the Sphinx, or you know what I mean? Like, who knows? We really don't, because we're taught so otherwise until we can snap out of that. And most of us don't, which is why there's such a small amount of us in these spaces,
It's called brainwashing. Well, it's actually just our history has been whitewashed, I guess you could say. It's been washed. It's been diluted and just too many resets, too many things. And then we add the mind control to it with these radar towers and all sorts of technology they've had for decades that we were not told about and unaware of. And that's where a lot of this originated, right, Brian? With the mind control radar towers and things. I was able to
trace all of everything. Like I have so many, cited sources from, way back when they first started learning all of these things, and tied them all together to make the case. And I'm still, some of the new one document I got, if you get it from the CIA's website, Project Pandora, is in the same year as Montauk ran, and they literally say they wanted to combine microwave mind control with psychoactive, with psychedelics, and all the stuff that I was trying to prove with the LSD rooms. It's like right in the document. They even sent that packet to where Preston said he worked. Preston Nichols, one of the original whistleblowers, and like the third book in that series, Pyramids of Montauk, it was called Pyramids of Montauk, and they had a picture from an old Long Island history book from like the 1850s where they showed the top of a pyramid. But I actually found them off the coast of Montauk, like an ancient city, where this place, it's a spire in the ocean that ripped off the, the bottom of the biggest ship at the time in the world before the Titanic, called the Great Eastern. They described it like an obelisk, like the Washington Monument kind of. and it tore the bottom off the biggest ship in the world. And the Great Eastern is the name of the ship. And so when I looked on Google Earth, I saw this like plateau with all these rows of mounds, like it was like a city, and this thing's right in the middle. And then there's a big pyramid off the coast of Montauk. So I took the screenshots of it. Was on Google Earth on the ocean floor. But now if you go there, they blurred it ever since. So I'm so glad I got those screenshots and printed them in the book, because now it's just completely blurred, like softened.
Yeah,
you can't make it out.
Same thing with Amityville Horror House. Like the whole neighborhood is blurred. Like
It's
if you
gone.
try,
They just took it down.
yeah, like if you try to Google search that house, like you can't see the whole block, the whole, the surrounding blocks, like
And they tore it down last week. They tore the house down.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
I didn't even know that part. But yeah, it's pretty crazy.
They tore the house down?
Yeah, the Amityville house is now gone. Last week they bulldozed it and everything. It was on the local news. I just happened to get lucky and turn it on and catch that. I was like, no, you turned it down.
Oh my gosh.
But Mike's right. They blurred out like everything. They changed the windows, like Mike was pointing out. They used to have those iconic like eyeball looking windows.
Yeah.
And those so people wouldn't come and bother them,
So I guess maybe the family who bought the house, who lives there or was living there, maybe they just didn't want the attention, I guess. I don't know. I couldn't imagine buying that house, knowing the history and the fame of it. I mean, it's kind of a package deal, you would have to think.
I highly doubt they won't. Yeah. They'll probably build something on top of it again. But,
and it'll be haunted too.
Yep.
It's gonna be haunted. It's I got an interesting connection there, because I have a cousin who's an actress, and when she was really little, she played the little girl in that Amityville horror movie.
Wow.
Chloe Grace. She played the little girl, one of the kids. Yeah. With Ryan Reynolds, man, I'm jealous.
I saw that one.
Ryan Reynolds. Okay, but anyways, I like Deadpool. Okay, but anyways, Maureen, thank you so much for that super sticker. I appreciate that so much. She said, "Awesome show. Hit that like button." Y'all have a fan club in this audience today too. By the way, everybody likes. I've seen a lot of good comments about both of you guys being on here today. So
awesome.
Yeah, this is
awesome. What I wanted to throw in before I forget. A lot of people like to separate, like, they'll be like, oh, are you talking about the New Jersey Pine Barrens? And I'm like, well, no, the Long Island Pine Barrens, but they're the same thing. So once upon a time, it was, I believe, 900 square miles or something. And they used to be attached. And even Cape Cod has its own Pine Barrens as well. And but they were all, and that's a little above Long Island, but they were all connected at one point. So in essence, it's all the same exact thing. And, being that we were talking about the Pine Barrens, I'm like, oh, let me just kind of pull up some stuff. And I just typed in Pine Barrens weird stories, and like Reddit popped up. And there's a lot of people talking about cryptid sightings in our Pine Barrens, which I've never really noticed. So I'm actually interested in reading what they put out there.
Oh, really?
But it's interesting because they keep saying, like, I can't believe people aren't reporting these. I can't believe people aren't reporting these, and it's pretty true.
Well, interesting. Okay, well, I'm showing a picture. This is a map of Long Island on the screen right now, and the Pine Barrens are right there in the middle. That's the green part. Okay, that's the Pine Barrens right there, and in Montauk, where I was with these fellas, where they were, Camp Hero is actually the northern tip of that island right there. And so I guess we had to drive through the Pine Barrens kind of to get to Montauk, right, guys?
Montauk is the Pine Barrens still.
Oh, it is.
Like, okay. Yeah, they so that's like the Central Pine Barrens, that green part. That's what they consider the 100,000 acres. Mm-hmm. But there's way more to it, and it stretches like, so that basically is where like Brookhaven Lab starts, kind of. Mm-hmm. At the left side of the Pine Barrens there, and then it goes all the way out to like Plum Island and Montauk. But it basically, that dark green part is the preserve, like, that nobody can touch, nobody can do anything with, and then that lighter green area is considered like, I forget what the terminology is, but it's still a preserve, but there's like, you need some kind of like act of Congress to build on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. Maybe like a wildlife management area or something.
Yeah, something to that effect. But there's a lot of state parks and all sorts of stuff outside of that, and whatever.
Well, I'm showing the full map of New York right here too, and I wanted to give you a relation to like where this island is in the state of New York. It's down south, y'all. right there at the bottom.
Yeah.
That's Long Island down there at the very southern tip of New York, in that waterway right there. So, and the ocean.
Yeah.
Wow.
The ocean, the sound, and the bays.
Yeah, the North Shore is like really close to Connecticut, like really close.
Yeah.
So like there's, I don't know, we have people come down from Connecticut a lot and they just take a ferry quick across or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, and it's really dense out there too. And so I know when I first started bringing you on the show, Mike, I remember, I admit that I thought that Long Island was a whole bunch of high-rise buildings and asphalt.
The other side is New York City. You know, Queens and Brooklyn are technically on Long Island.
But I mean, by just looking at these pictures here, this is actually off the coast where Camp Hero is right here, and it's all woods. Y'all, I've never seen so many deer in my entire life. In Montauk.
Yep.
And look how dense this is. I mean, just the woods are so dense.
We got really screwed up in those woods.
Right behind the radar.
3 weeks ago, a month ago. Yeah, we all sorts of turned around, and we found poachers in there that were well hidden. When I was trying to talk to the whatever they're called, you know, the agents that deal with animals and stuff, fish and game, and they were like, "Where?" They're like, "Where?" You know, I'm like, I should have left a marker. I'm like, because it's deep, dense stuff. Yeah.
You don't want to get lost in there. I mean, it seems like it's probably pretty creepy. And I know going back to the New Jersey Pine Barrens, I've always heard a lot of stories coming out of there. And I think recently there were wildfires up there in those forests. And we had wildfires down here too.
We had some huge ones here. They didn't last long though. They were like less than 25, 30 years ago. There was really huge ones, and like 96 actually it was. But there was they went for days, and so many acres burned. It was crazy. But this time it was quick. But the flames were high though. They were like, what
did they say it started from? It was something stupid like s'mores. That's what they said. Like I'm like, how do you come up with that?
Somebody was making s'mores for breakfast, supposedly.
First of all, there's no damn way, because like if we're not camping, the chance of anybody else camping is nil. It was still cold out.
Yeah.
So who the hell's making s'mores in the middle of the woods?
I know. Well, I mean, I don't know. Did Mountain Dew put out a s'mores flavor before that happened? I'm just saying. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Though if you know, you know. Okay.
I'll tell you who did. I'll tell you who did put out a s'mores flavor. It was that Bones company or whatever that makes coffee. I want one of them.
Yeah.
Oh my God! I thought you were going to say like some kind of potato chip company. I would never doubt that. I don't put it past any company to make weird stuff these days for us to consume. That's not good for us. Okay. So the Pine Barrens, I've heard a lot. I've talked to people who have done research in the Pine Barrens, people who've gone on dogman hunts out in the Pine Barrens, and what I know from the Pine Barrens personally, and I've not been there, but it's the Jersey Devil, and that was something that was given as a remote viewing target a long time ago. And that is such a weird cryptid up there, because nobody really knows exactly what this thing is. And there's all these pictures. I don't know every time I get a weird feeling about this picture, y'all. I've always thought that was like a taxidermed goat. Okay. That's what I think, but I don't know.
There's so many variations of what the Jersey Devil looks like. And I don't think people are seeing the same thing. I think they're just, it's similar to like down Mexico and Texas, like people just say chupacabra because they saw something weird, you know what I mean? And this is what I think the Jersey Devil kind of falls under, like, but I do think there's some kind of winged something in there, you know? And I've seen multiple people that'll be like, "Oh, I found a Bigfoot nest," and I'm like, "That's a giant bird nest or something." Like it's circular and it's like, 10 by 10, and it looks like a bird nest. I'm like, I don't think that's a Bigfoot. I'm like, I think you got to get the hell out of there before you get picked up.
Yeah.
It looks like a pterodactyl nest.
One of those renditions of what this looks like, it looks like it has a horse's head. And something that came to mind when I was looking at this is when I had Jeremiah Fountain on the show a while back. He had given me a coordinate remote viewing target of a creature that his neighbor, his dad's friend, had found on his property. And it was like it was like a bipedal horse. kind of. It was almost
Wow.
like a horse humanoid or something.
Cool.
And this kind of reminds me that was in New York, by the way. I know this is New Jersey, but it's right there. Actually, he lives up in the Adirondacks, I think.
Yes.
So it would be way farther north. However, it kind of, I'm not saying they're related, but maybe it's kind of weird, right? He didn't mention having wings, though.
He had something on his property too that it was in reptilian nature, I believe. But the footage was hard to make out, but his description was, easier to make out what he was talking about. But it was pretty wild. But yes, he's in Adirondacks, so yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good connection. Oh, my friend slept in front of the Jersey Devil sign in the Pine Barrens in Jersey. There's actual sign that says New Jersey Devil Crossing, and it's like a standard yellow sign. So he took a picture and sent it to me. I can't, it's computers ago, but I'm going to ask him if he has that. I'll try to send it to you. But it was cool.
I would love to see that. I mean, for that would have probably been the county or somebody putting that sign up, I would assume.
Yeah,
especially if it's on government land. Wow.
I guess it was near some of the sightings, but I've heard people say the horsehead bat, but it's big, but it's not anything near the size of what they said. But we do have some parrots, colorful like tropical parrots here that came on ships, and they live on the phone wires down like on the ocean there. So I mean, you never know, something could have came here long ago and then grown.
Anything invasive survives here. Like there's between plants and animals and birds and everything. So many invasive things survive here. Besides reptiles, it's about the only thing, things like alligators and stuff like that. It's about the only thing that doesn't make it because of winter.
I was actually reading that about the Pine Barrens up there where you guys are, that there are at least over 100 bird species in that Barrens area alone. And many are disappearing out of the region right now, though. And it said there's a huge population of different types of butterflies and moths, and including the buck moth, which is being kind of endangered right now, I guess, and different vertebrates of the eastern tiger salamander.
Yes.
The salamander and the mud turtle.
Yeah.
The mud turtle.
I had a salamander pet once. I tried to have a salamander as a pet, but it didn't like the environment.
Was it a big one or little?
No, it was little, but we do have, we do have them. I don't know how big they get, but I've seen those ones that are huge that kind of cry like a human baby almost. Like,
those little fish you put in your fish tank to eat the algae, the plecos. I've never seen one in the wild. And me and him and the guys were out. The guys from Ohio came out, and all of a sudden we're in the Pine Barrens, and we're crossing. It's like this little tiny bridge you go down, and it's a cool little bridge, but I love it. And like, I'm always like, I love like the way it feels when you're here, because it kind of opens up a little on both sides. So I shine my light down the water, and there's, I don't know, dozens of these things, and they're little, right? And they're all like just sitting there sleeping, sucking the, dirt, whatever. All of a sudden, big ones start coming out all over the place. And me and him were like bugging out, like.
I got one clip of like a huge one. Actually, it was like, decent size, and it went by so fast I'll have to slow it down.
I couldn't capture it. Yeah, I missed a couple of them because they take off.
You're like armored catfish kind of.
Yeah, well, that one might have been a carp, like you said. Okay, it's hard to say.
Yeah.
Well, Bigfoot Dwarf says Bigfoots make s'mores. Maybe Bigfoots were the cause of that wildfire out there. Well, there are also reports of Sasquatch, of Bigfoots up there. And I know at Camp Hero, we did some scouting and boots on the ground kind of stuff out there, looking for Junior and his buddies out there. And Junior, for people who aren't familiar with Camp Hero and the Montauk Project, Brian explained what it was, but there was a Bigfoot. There's allegedly, and it's not so much allegedly, because you guys actually have some pictures of what looks like a Bigfoot out there.
It's not, we can't take credit for it, but well, I could take credit for mine, but there's one that originated way before me on the bunker, and that was taken from a plane, I think.
Well, yeah, there's 3 or 4 different ones. The first guys took it off the roof of the radar. The second ones took it off the roof of the radar. The third one took it from a plane. And then I forget the fourth one, but it seems to be there sometimes and not others, or like stuck there, at least in that sense, but we've seen other stuff around that, other cryptids at Camp Hero that we can't quite explain. Like I got a still shot off something from the lighthouse web camera and we saw some stuff with our eyes, but also we caught things here and there.
Yeah, that was cool because that was out in choppy waters, standing on a rock. Which, first of all, you wouldn't step in that water because you just die within minutes, and then let alone stand on a rock somehow with crashing waves. Like you would, it's just the stupidest. And this is the reports I get from boat captains when they send stuff, and they're like, "There's no way it was a human because it was just standing out there in the dark, no light." Like just picking up clams and mussels and like wading through the freezing cold waters, and it was just tearing ass through and like marsh hopping and like just collecting and collecting and collecting. And as a shell fisherman, like I love clamming and stuff like that. Like it's a very rewarding thing, and like I wouldn't do it at night, first of all. Second of all, if I was, it'd have to be warm water, and I'd have to have a light and a bucket and a buddy and whatever.
And those things are sharp too. You can't just like smack your hand down in the water and grab them; it'll cut your hands up.
What you actually get is like it's like a tool that goes around your hand that has a little scoop, for you. Oh. So you grip that and you scoop it up. Yeah, and that's the best way to do it. Nice. So you don't actually.
And people like me, they walk out in the bay and they use their feet to find them, and they pick them up. They just feel around with their foot and dig them out. I don't know. You got to be, I guess, pretty hardcore to do that. But
yeah, right.
They eat them right out of the water.
Though. Listen, they're not like humans. Their skin is way tougher, so they can do that, I guess.
It makes sense.
Yeah, Jane's saying there's got to be a lot of portals out there, and I've just been experiencing these different. There's so much glacial rock and everything. Basically, we're on a giant glacier, but like the energy is insane, and there's these pockets of cold sometimes that they report too, even when it's hot, like or even when it's cold, it's like extremely cold there. Or it's just not stuff that you would expect in a barren area, because it's technically a desert. You know what I mean? That's how dry it is. That's why when we go camping, we try to position ourselves at night, like before nightfall, we try to position ourselves up against the river or the water or whatever, hoping that whatever is in there is coming at night to come down, and it's been pretty successful in some years, and then other years it's kind of quiet. So you got a
water connection. Like the first year after we went to Montauk, like when we first met, like the first year we all kind of, the three of our Michael, Dark Hour Paranormal, Mike and myself and Danielle, or 3 channels, that night at the campground, we went out in the woods. I had the old Sony night shot, like tape camera. And we were near this lake, and Mike says, this is a good place to look for prints. And we're like, yeah, that's cool. We didn't see them, but when I watched the video back, there's 3 massive footprints in a row, like left, right, left, going to the water. And they were like this big, and they're like a human. You could even see the toes, and they looked wet. And I was just like, whoa, that's so weird. He just said something about prints, and like they're so clear on the video. And then we saw a frog in the water. We were staring at it, but it had a square inside its back. It looked like a battery in its back. It was so weird.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah, there's so many different things that we could bounce on that don't make sense.
Yeah.
Like the deer that wasn't a deer, and whatever. Anyway, I wanted to say something when you brought up Junior, but before I forget, because when you think about that, like the connection, there's people that go out there a million times looking for stuff, like looking for artifacts, looking for pieces of history and whatever. And that one day we were out there, like I was like kind of guided away from the group. And like I just kind of went with it, and it was like almost like I was just being like pulled, like by not by a magnet necessarily, but like something was just leading me towards, and I kind of started going the wrong way, and like it pulled me back this way, and it led me right to that reel to reel, which was probably from the project.
Yep.
And it was I don't know if there's video on there or whatever, but eventually Brian was able to uncover some audio, because it was ripped up, it was beat up, and it's a cool relic in general just to have and say, like, even if that's all we get from it is like, this is awesome, this is cool find, that's cool with me. But the sound he got off it. If I never hear that sound again, I'll be fine. Because it was.
What was it?
Yeah.
What
It was
I remember what you're talking about, but what did it sound like?
Torturous, in my opinion. If you had to listen to it for a long period of time, I'm saying torturous, but I'd imagine it would be like a brainwashing like thing. Like maybe they would play it over and over and over and over, and then maybe you ever see Zoolander when like they trigger the guy with that song? You know what I mean? And he don't like that's probably what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
they awaken the sleeper cells.
It's like the reel is flipped when we put it on, so it's backwards. But every even the CA, there was something like every 30 seconds we all say something backwards. That's like the real truth if you're trying to hide something. So they use that to flip people backwards and see what they mean. And so this was already playing backwards. So like every 30 seconds I marked it out, and there's something forwards, and there's like a few messages in the small piece of the recording. Now the guys I went with were unknown, I don't know who I rode with. And they jerked me around and never gave me the audio. They said our mics were hot. I said, I don't care. I'll listen through it, but they just kind of never gave it to me. But I luckily stuck the GoPro in the headphones and recorded a small sample because I still, we were going to still try to do more with it. It's just, we hit a lot of dead ends, and when that happened, when Mike was led over there, actually something showed up on your video in the woods there that day, but there was also this J sinker, a lead sinker on the rock right there, like Junior, And even when Mike was talking about the water sources and that we were talking about him standing out in the ocean on a rock, I was watching some old Montauk video because Junior supposedly destroyed the base,
right? Which is what Dan's saying.
Yeah,
so
Dan. That's what the comment says.
There's so
down
much
here
more
from Dan.
to it, like Dan saying, there's a huge story behind this all, and there's a lot more details that we even have. It's just on the surface. But I saw something Al Bielek said in '93 about he said Junior was out seen swimming in the surf in '93, and I thought that sounded silly. But then when I see him something standing on the rock there, I'm like, it's just these weird connections that come back even to like some of the stuff that seems a little out there. Sometimes we find stuff that matches up, and you're like, whoa, this is just.
But I kind of got like a download drive-by too, because I was putting out there like, mentally I was saying like, Junior, like, are you something like, that doesn't want to be bothered? Like, do you not like people? Like, do you, we won't bug you if, like, whatever. Like, I was trying to put it out there. Like, are you good? Are you bad? And I just got this like, boop, like telepathy. It was just like, I'm not the monster here. Like, I corrected the monsters. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so when you think about it, yeah, he came and tore up the base and he did this destructive stuff. But when you really look at it, all the stuff that the humans were doing there to the other humans was pretty damn evil. So if you really flip the script, it's like, well, okay, yeah, he kind of did some good, and I guess it depends how you look at it. Right?
Yeah, the real.
It's all about perspective.
Yeah, so it really changed something. It flipped something in my mind. I was like, oh shit! I started looking at it differently,
Yeah, and like
it's tragic.
There was something that showed up on a picture I had that looked like the typical, well, not the typical, but the original pictures of Junior in the bushes right in front of the radar. And it was right after something jumped off the roof behind me. I was filming the radar and I was near the computer building, and this really heavy thing jumped off the roof and took 3 steps and then was gone. But it was so heavy, I actually turned around and like jogged the other way, which is something I usually never do. But I'm like, yep, I thought it was a deer on the roof that jumped off, which didn't make any sense. And then I realized it didn't keep running away. So I went over where the radar is, and on one of the pictures, it looks like Junior is standing like right behind the bushes. It's crazy.
How often we hear that? Like we hear those footsteps or those like, or that running or whatever. I call them phantom footsteps, but I'm like to make it make sense. I'm pretty sure it's them right next to us in the parallel, whatever you want to call it, like dimension, next realm, whatever, like right beyond the veil, however it makes sense for you or however you phrase it, right? Like
same thing.
It is typical of Bigfoot behavior when you're out in the field, or some kind of cryptid behavior when you're out in the field. And sometimes you'll just hear a couple of you hear 2 footsteps, or 1 footstep, or 3 footsteps, and that's it. And there's nothing there. You can't find anybody. No animals, no nothing. And it happens more often than you guys could ever imagine. Not y'all, but
No, yeah.
The more used to being out there.
Yeah, the more boots you put on the ground and spend time out there, the more you hear that. And it's like, and you can't connect it to anything else. You know what I mean? And And more often than not, there's nothing else around anyway. No birds, no squirrels, no nothing. You know, it's oddly enough over and over and over again.
About how big was Giant? I mean, Giant. How big was Junior? I think Rose Thistles was asking how big was it? Was he a giant? He was a Bigfoot.
They
right?
said it varied in the original book said they varied in size because some people were scared, but they said it was significantly, taller than usual reports. But I guess a little larger than normal is what I got from all the different things. Maybe Mike heard more too.
No, I haven't really. You know me, I try not to hear any. I try to go in blind, and then you know what I mean. So I experience things like without any, being swayed in either direction or having any preconceived ideas. So I always went in like without knowing anything, and until I started knowing, obviously after years of doing it, but yeah, like when I couldn't wait to see you guys on the bunker, right? So when you guys were climbing up that bunker, I could not wait to stand back a distance and get a size perspective of you, because that picture that was taken of Junior on the bunker, it was huge compared to you guys on the bunker. It was massive, whatever it was. So that was cool to me. So I could say in that aspect, if you do say that's Junior, which I think it is, because I don't know. I don't know why any other Sasquatch would want to go in that area, because of all the negative history and all that crap. And, I don't know why they would want to wander in there necessarily, but him being there and already doing this thing, I'd assume he'd just kind of stay and make sure the land was taken care of.
Yeah. It's an old Native American village there for 10,000 years. I mean, that was the Fort Knox of Wampum, they called Montauk Point, because of all the quahog clams. They make the, purple shells were wampum at the time. Of course, I'm just for anybody who doesn't, if I'm saying it fast, but the place was loaded with them, and they had a little place where they would like work on beads, and some people lived there. So, I mean, I always connect, the natives' land to this to Sasquatch as well. Yeah. But maybe he's always been in that land. Who knows?
That's a good point, actually. And and we've talked pretty extensively with different people that have been on the show about how a lot of times the cryptids are kind of summoned there through blessings and curses to protect that land at all costs.
The story says that he was summoned from thin air, by Duncan Cameron.
Yeah, right. But through
a portal.
Yeah, and you got to wonder: was it from thin air? Was it from was he already there? And like, all he needed to do is be asked. We don't really know necessarily, but I'll tell you one thing: when we did that I don't want to call it a ritual. When we did that healing, I guess around that circle, which I consider a vortex, because I felt good there, and I felt like, get me the hell out of here, like in the same spot, and it's not even just there, but that's a strong point. But when they were doing that healing, the lost souls of Montauk, whatever you want to call them, super soldiers, I don't want to butcher that, but it felt to me like we were surrounded by like forest entities, if you will.
Yes,
I felt it too.
Yeah, and I know you did. I don't necessarily know if they were all Sasquatch, but I felt like there was a lot of things there helping us out.
And the year before, you said the same thing. Actually, you were pointing out, like, we did this a few years in a row, but actually made a mini documentary about that spot just recently, the planetary cross point at Montauk. And I strung them all together in order. So like the year before we get there in the circle, we were going to do some tests, and Mike's like, pointing out all around us that he's like over there. And then like the following year, you guys said the same thing. So it's definitely so many places there with a lot to talk about. But
and we don't even know what kind of rips through space and time all the technology they had at Montauk and at Camp Hero under the ground right there. I mean, I had done a remote viewing target of that exact same location, and there was all sorts of stuff going on down there underground. I think it's still going on today, actually, if you want to be honest. If I'm going to be honest.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. The deeper part that you can't access from the surface anywhere near the park, that would have been made with a lot of money in the later years, and I don't think they would just abandon it. But the top side, underground is definitely flooded and destroyed. The old World War II and the old Cold War fallout shelters, we've visibly seen that they sealed them with cement after they left the base, just like they said. like the elevator and the radar, especially because we have all the proof from the old real estate documents of the other tower they sold. And then we went there and we tested, Mike was there. We all went in the radar a bunch of times and tested threw rocks down with glow sticks and put cameras in, underwater cameras. And it's literally filled with cement, that entire building. So, and then, a lot of those things are abandoned, but below that huge, massive base that exists that we can't really find anything on, that would definitely still be, I don't think they would just abandon something that costs.
Do you have the pictures of Brookhaven Labs that I sent you?
I do. And Tracy, thank you for becoming a member of the Hunt Club. That is so sweet of you. Let me take that down. I do. So Brookhaven Labs is just right down from there, right? How far is that away?
It's on the west end of the Pine Barrens. So yeah. So this is, I don't even know what that
light source. National, the NLS. That's a UV and a infrared cannon.
It goes down though. Everything in there goes down, and I don't think they tell us honestly how far down everything goes because there's multiple circles like that. This is new, I think.
Look how big that is, y'all. What are the chances of that being like a large hadron collider there, or an ion?
There is.
An ion collider.
They work with CERN.
Yeah, they have.
Okay, so they have that. Okay,
they discovered
same
the
as
Higgs
in Oak Ridge
boson here.
Labs. I was very close to Oak Ridge Labs actually this past weekend myself.
They have an atomizer separator. When the UFO went down in '92, people reported seeing something shoot out of Brookhaven Labs. Something shot up, and then the UFO came down.
Wow. Okay, well, that just adds to the high strangeness of the area, and I'm assuming this is when they were building it. So this is not a very old facility then.
I drove right around that when they were building it. Actually,
wow.
My sister worked there for a summer as an intern. So when I drop her off, she'd have like a 3-hour shift. So I spend the whole time just driving around the whole place. Wow. And I don't know if I was supposed to, but I drove around the particle accelerator a couple times, and it's massive. You can see it from space. If you look at Long Island, there's a big circle. That's it. And it works directly with CERN. CERN has one called the, what is it called? The Large Hadron Collider, the LHC. Brookhaven Labs has the RHIC, the Relativistic Heavy Ion Collider. And they work together in something called Atlas, because I knew people that worked in that. And I actually have a piece of the CERN accelerator here on my desk. I'm looking for it. It's a keychain, and it's a superconductor inside. And I got it from the scientists. They discovered the Higgs boson particle at Brookhaven here, not CERN. It's mixed up in the media, but like if you look it up, that's the particle that's here sometimes and not here. It teleports in and out of our existence. So it's called the God particle. It's literally proof of extra dimensions. And they found that in 2012. Like the Hala effect and everything.
That is fantastic. That's wild. And
near Mike up there.
Oh my gosh. Well, okay. So where I was this past weekend was close to Oak Ridge Labs in East Tennessee. And they have a project. They work with CERN there. It's called ALICE. Okay. Yes. And it's just, the acronym is like a large ionic or ion collider or something. ALICE, and then something else. Okay. Yeah. I don't know what the E stands for, but anyways, they have these all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
So what exactly is going on here? And we're wondering why all these cryptids are out here.
And this used to be a base. This used to be a base too. Brookhaven Labs used to be a base as well, and they still have guys there when you get there with automatic rifles and everything. And I used to, when I went reserves after the Army, I tried reserves out, and it was supposed to be out west, more towards like Nassau County. But I used to know someone in Shoreham, which is down the block, literally from Brookhaven Labs. And I was like, "What do we do here?" And they were like, "Oh, we just kind of hang out." And if anything pops up, they call us. And I'm like, who? They're like, oh, never mind. And I started to piece together, oh, we're a whole reserve Army unit for Brookhaven Labs. Like it's, whatever.
Oh my gosh.
There's, they were all, like Mike was saying, they're all former Army bases from World War II. Even before World War II, paperclip scientists were brought to all three. Plum Island, Camp Hero, and Brookhaven Labs were all, Brookhaven was Camp Upton, Camp Hero was Camp Hero still, and Plum Island was, the Animal Disease Research Center. It was Fort Terry back then, along Army bases. So coastal artillery, so they converted all of them. They brought paperclip scientists over to all three of those for high
But yeah,
science.
like when you think about Plum Island, like even like you have to take you have to take a private ferry to get there, and they do a million things to just for you to get in. Like, didn't you say, Brian, someone went to like fix something simple? You knew
My
that
grandfather, yeah, he
yeah.
was the lineman for AT&T in the city, in the Bronx and stuff, and he did like the crazy, things a lot of people didn't want to do, like the conduit crawl and the project courtyard during, times that were rough, but like they were throwing fire out the window. But so they sent him to Plum Island. It took him all day, but he, like Mike said, he'd take the ferry, and then when he gets there, he has to go down a level, shower, and this is 4 levels down. When he got down there, they give him the screwdriver. He changes, he fixed like a wire or something, and then it took like 5 minutes to the job, and then on the way back up, shower the whole way up, and then drive home. The
hour of
whole
showers
day just to fix a simple thing.
just to change a light bulb. I tell you what. Well, you mentioned Plum Island, and thank you, Rose Thistle Artwork. She says, I'm assuming that's a girl. I don't know if you're a woman or a man. Okay. But thank you so much. Alice, a large ion collider experiment is what Alice is, out of Oak Ridge Labs. Y'all look it up. East Tennessee, where the zombie bears were. Okay. And, okay. So Plum Island. All right, we talked about that the last time you were on the show, Brian, and we were talking about that, the sketch of that body that had I guess it was found on the beach, and it had extra fingers, or the fingers were super long, and it was just really odd. I mean, a lot of strange, it seems like human hybrid and animal experiments go on out there, and I think that maybe that attributes to some of these cryptid sightings around the area. I mean, we had the Montauk monster that washed up on shore as well. I'm sure it keeps it spicy over there where you guys are. And I was wondering if maybe, y'all had a whole crew that came up this past week. Was it MT Paranormal and
MT Paranormal Life? Yeah, and Cameraman. Yeah, Jack and Mike came out. Yeah, they came all the way from Ohio, stayed for a couple of days with me, and we did a night investigation with Brian, if you want to call it that, I guess. And we took them to a place where we have activity from the sky to the floor, and it didn't fail. I wasn't sure what to expect, but basically it's one of the places where we just see orbs on orbs on orbs on orbs on orbs on orbs. It's like it's almost so like you're just in their way. Like
you're ducking and diving from, trying to stay out of the orb's way, basically. Is what it sounds like.
Yeah, kind of like when people are like, "Oh, like you ever see orbs?" Like that place pops in my head, and I'm like, "Yeah, yeah."
Well, that's one of the constants when we go out too. We usually have orbs and balls of light. We had that out in Tennessee. Actually, we're going to be talking about that on Saturday night. I've got the guys that were some of the guys I was out there with are coming on the show Saturday night. And there were points where we were out there, and we were actually seeing a lot of fireflies too, which is kind of odd. For I don't know, it's odd for this time of year. I don't know, because it's
early.
It's kind of it's kind of cool out there for the fireflies to be out, but nonetheless, there were all sorts of lights out there too in the trees, and orbs we were seeing as well. So
those mystery lights you see sometimes, like looks like a train coming, but we've seen a few things like that out there too.
Really?
And I mean, there is a helicopter training, Black Hawk training area kind of closer to me. There's an airbase there in the Pine Barrens also. And, me and Mike have been seeing these drones up there forever, like around Long Island. But on Christmas this past year, during like the big waves of them, there was a huge story in the local news at this airbase. They had 28 drones over the runway, and they couldn't identify them. And they were blocking the actual military planes from like taking off. Like they have one kind of plane and the Black Hawks, the C-130s and the Black Hawks. And they couldn't take off or anything because these drones were floating over their runway. So that there's that too here. There's a little bit of everything, like you said. But that last trip we went in the woods was pretty active, and we always see this. Like Mike said, it's like a go-to for the same kind of stuff. When we get across the other side of the lake area, you can definitely start seeing these lights where we just were, like a few minutes earlier. And
anything inside that, I call it the Long Island Triangle. Like and I know there's triangles, but that's the best way I could put it, because if you look at Plum Island and you look at Montauk and then you look at Brookhaven Labs, it forms a perfect triangle, and that's a lot of the stuff that happens. It falls in that area, and so right where you're looking at now, like Brookhaven Labs is on the left side of that, like the western side, the left side.
It's
And
near where
then
it says, what is that? The Y and the apostrophe up there at the top. It's closer to that, y'all. Okay. It says Long Island Sound in parentheses, it says National Estuary.
yeah,
And it's going to be right kind of below it's still over to the
yeah,
right.
kind of below where it
that,
says national,
that
yeah.
parentheses.
And
Right,
then
right beside the Cryptid Huntress dog up there, y'all.
someone asked about Plum Island. That's where it is, right next to the dog. And then Montauk would be right below the dog.
Yeah.
So we say
better map.
Long Island looks like a fish. That's what everyone says because like it forks off at the back. So like
the two forks we call them, but they're peninsulas, and in the
Well,
middle there is the bay.
Yeah, and there's all like different islands down in there, and then across the bottom there's Fire Island, which is a whole nother story. But there's islands. There's many islands out there.
Yeah,
and
lots of places for
Montauk
for
used to be an
critters.
island too. Yeah, Montauk was its own island like 2,000 years ago. It's not that far back. Yeah, so it was a huge island also. Like Mike was saying, there's a lot of islands everywhere.
Wow,
part of Long Island, but yeah, they
I didn't know that.
There's volcanoes down under Long Island as well. We always talk about this, but that's on like the Newsday How Long Island Was Born story. So it's not like disputed, but there's like the glacier dumped 1,000 feet of sand when the glacier retreated. So there's 1,000 feet of sand, and then below that there's volcanoes. And where there's volcanoes, there's lava tubes that cross the country. And also, I was thinking some of the bottomless lake stories we have, like if you had a lake on top and it would just keep falling in the top of the volcano, the caldera or whatever, like an hourglass, and then eventually you got this lake up there. It's like a kitchen sink, just.
Lake Ronkonkoma was always one of them that they said was bottomless, and I've looked it up recently, and now they're saying it has a 95-foot depth, but they really have no proof. Like they've never gotten to the bottom and been able to touch bottom, but they're just saying 95. Most of it's like 12 feet, but there's a 95-foot bottom in it.
Yeah,
I don't know, but that's where Lake Ronkonkoma was one of those Native American history places. I think we've gone over that one before.
Did you guys get any kind of activity with Bigfoots over the past week when you guys were out there? Because y'all were out there for a while. I know you were, Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got something strange in a picture. Definitely. Well, I heard something in a tree. It wasn't, I don't think it was Bigfoot, so to say, because it sounded smaller. And then when I went back and looked, right when I remembered this spot, because we were looking at this broken tree, and that also was like a bend, touching the ground like always. So we were looking at the tree structures, and then I heard something move after we started walking away. So I looked back, and it looks like there's something up in the tree. I don't know. I see a hand on one side of the tree and the face on the other, but it looks kind of weird. And it could just be something that looks like that. So I'd have to have a few, other people look at it and see what they think. But yeah, I think those guys got some other stuff. Like everybody was off on their own. That was the thing. Like I didn't see it yet. I'm going to have mine done in a few days. Mike has his own footage, but like Jack was over here, and like MT was like across the lake. Everybody went pretty far off from each other.
Yeah, he had his paranormal stuff set up. But the other days I brought them out, and the other nights they got quite a bit. They got quite a bit, between knocks and visuals and eye shine that we can't. Something cloaked, like we couldn't even see what it was. It was just eyes, red eyes, no matter what we did.
Oh, and the writing in the sand again, just like
writing in the sand.
Yeah, literally last time we were talking about it, and we saw it on the way out. We saw writing that something it kind of pertained to what we were talking about, and we didn't see it on the way in. Like our footsteps weren't over it, because it was written right in the sand where you walk in. And then so this time we're telling them about it, and then on the way out again there's all these tic-tac-toe games right where we had walked in, like after
he says to me on the way in, remember that little girl? And I'm like, oh yeah, it was like a message in the sand, like help me or something like that, like help me please. And it was like a little girl's bow with it and like whatever, and I'm like, oh yeah, I totally remember that. And we had like all these like things, and I'm like, and on the way out again, right in the same spot in the sand where there was tic-tac-toe games. Like it was so weird.
Oh, well, okay. Well, before we went live, we were talking about the missing persons forest. Well, I forgot. I'm not saying the name right. It's got like a name or something. Can we talk about that for a minute? Because I think this is important.
There
about the Pine
was,
Barrens.
yeah, there was a spot, and I don't remember exactly where it was, but there was like hundreds of missing persons pictures taped up
Flyers.
on, yeah, flyers taped up on the trees, and like nobody ever like took credit for it. Nobody ever, like, it was just one of those weird things that oh my god, that was
Oh,
oh, what, I forget what the name of it is too.
You said
the
Forest of
Lost
Lost
Island.
Souls?
It was like the Lost Island or the Island of Lost Souls.
Something
Right?
like that, yeah. I'd have
Let's
to look.
see.
Yeah.
I had it pulled up here, and now I don't. And now I don't.
I've
So
seen
Yeah,
it
I
before.
did too. I lost it.
the Island of Lost Souls, I think, is what it was called.
Yeah, and then Weird New Jersey looks like he took it for his Pine Barrens and made a story about it, but that's not where it happened. It was literally in our news and everything. It was like right here.
Mm-hmm.
So
Wow.
yeah, it was sketchy, and everybody was like, "Don't go in there." Da da da. So like, people like me flocked to it to try to find it, but
Oh
Found
my
some
gosh.
old article like 100 years ago. A lady went missing while she was picking berries, which I've instantly reminded me like what they say about the Fae, not to pick the berries, like missing 411 type stuff. And they never found her. And then I found another old article I was telling Mike about that. They said there was a wild man. People kept seeing Wild Man of Flanders. They called it. It was like an old New York Times from like 1908.
right.
And I was like, wait, I wanted to know more, but you had to like buy the archive or whatever. And
Okay, you had to pay.
yeah, now
Yeah,
I can't
you have
find
to-
it when I want to.
Yeah, and now we can't find it. And even the original reports of why they shut down one of our spots in the Barrens, people's dogs were getting killed, and they could hear them getting dragged out into there, and like
Oh.
a lot of weird stuff. And it's weird because with that stuff I was just telling you, I was kind of just typing up, and on Reddit it popped up, but it's from like 3 years ago. But people were saying there was a lot of Dogman sightings here. And I'm like, I really can't wait to dive into it, because I that's probably the one place I've never really looked is Reddit, or I've never really.
Yeah, Reddit's got some
searched
good
it.
info.
Yeah.
It's actually a pretty good resource, honestly.
So somebody originally, what it was it says no crawlers, and somebody from the city or whatever came out here to the Pine Barrens to try to find crawlers, didn't, and said, "Is there no crawlers? Cryptids" was the title, and there's a bunch of people underneath saying yes. And there's this, and there's that, and there's this, and you just got to go past Nassau and all the BS and da da da. They said once you get to Suffolk, it's as rural as upstate New York, and people are going up the rails and like telling their story, and I'm like, how? Where were they? Where were they when I was standing by myself screaming?
I know you should have like a town hall or something, or get some, get a group together.
Yeah, we got one.
All your spots together, and everybody
Me
go
and Mike
explore.
recorded one up there at that spot. Mike took me closer to him. We got one on. I believe we got one recorded, a crawler. So, but
oh yeah,
I mean, yeah, we got some other stuff on video up there, and when you come out here, it's like mostly water out in the eastern side of Long Island. You can't drive from Plum Island to like the top to the bottom. You have to go all the way back and then out again, like around. It's so crazy. Like it's hard to get. You can't go from one peninsula to the other. You have to go all the way around. So that's why it takes so long.
Roundabout.
It's mostly water out on the easternmost side, but
that's why there's so many critters out there, because it's hard to get to them.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh my gosh, we have a question in the chat for both of y'all from Dan. He said, "Have you ever felt in danger while you're out in the field?"
Yeah.
What about you, Mike? You go first. Have you? I know you have.
Yeah. A couple times. Yep.
Yeah. What about you, Brian?
Yeah, I usually do like the naive defense. Like I just kind of like don't pick up on the threats. Like it goes let it go over my head kind of while I'm there. Like I'll realize it, but I don't want to react with fear, being that some things may even feed on fear. So
if it's not absolutely. If it's not a direct threat, something coming right at you, definitely don't get scared. Even if you are, try to stay even keeled and just back out, with as much confidence as you can. But just, that's the best move, I think. But yeah, I had some sketchy stuff happen. You might see it on the History Channel soon, because they've been barking up my tree about it. So we'll see.
Well, I have a question. What about caves out there? Because I think you might have mentioned caves. I know we know there's a vast underground network out there at Camp Hero. But what about cave systems around there? You know, because that's people we assume that's probably where some of these cryptids are hanging out.
My whole life I've been looking for these caves. I've heard about them from the locals. I've actually found one on, me and Danielle found one on video once down on the beach, and we stuck the camera in. It went around the corner. I think I even seen old bottles stuck into the mud, like because they had prohibition. They used to hide booze in the bluffs there. But I've heard there's old caves that tie to an ancient underground. And being that there may be an ancient city off the coast, you never know. But we're not supposed to have caves, right?
Yeah, they make it sound like if you dig 2 feet under you, that's the water. You know, that's the way they make it seem. And we know that there's a whole bunch of underground stuff. As far as caves go, there's none like. There's no caves like
rock
you
caves,
know,
like
that you would be able to find like on a map or anything. But there's definitely a lot of underground stuff going on, even between the multiple hospitals, you know, and stuff like that. Those are hot spots for parent. People come far and wide for those, for Kings Park and those kind of psych center, because they're just hotbeds for paranormal activity.
And the western side of Long Island has New York City subways all running through it. So, like, you know,
exactly.
We can't do it only on that side of the island.
If you have the money, you can go down. But anyway, as soon as you go above this city, there's caves everywhere. There's all sorts of stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay. Well, thank you. Okay, Jane is asking, is there any activity on Shelter Island?
Been wanting to go there.
Where's
I've been
that?
there a few times, but I was younger and
been wanting to go back, Jane. I've been reading into it, like how much it costs to get on a ferry, how much it costs to stay out there, and it's a very small island. It's mostly tourism. Like when you get there, you know, there's not much to do. People like rent mopeds and stuff. It's similar to like a Montauk or like an Orient Point, but it's just a secluded island. And I'm curious if it's like a spot where something might be. Very curious.
Interesting.
Yeah. Andrew's asking, on top of deep underground military bases or just plain caves? I was just talking about plain old caves, but sometimes I think the caves probably do go down to deep underground military bases.
Yeah,
I'm pretty
wonder
sure.
if they connect myself.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that they concreted all the Camp Hero facilities up where you can't get down there. I think they're just probably plugging that area because they've got something bigger going on down there. You know, they took off that network of those buildings because they knew that people were gaining access to it, like you guys. And I'm not saying anybody's written a book about it or anything. I'm just saying it's not obvious, you know, that and it got YouTube channels and stuff. But you're not the only one that explores there, Brian and Mike. You guys are not the only ones. There's a lot of people exploring that area.
It's like a famous Long Island, you know, explorer spot from back then. Everybody has gone, like so many people. It's like a rite of passage almost for if you live here. To get out to some of these places, you know, Kings Park, Camp Hero.
It's very well covered up as well, though. You know what I mean? As far as the cryptids and things like that go, and like the real history, like it's very well covered up. You know, it is. You know, it's different now because we have these different ways to communicate with one another about stuff. But everything was always kind of just written off as like, oh, it's a ghost or it's haunted or it's a spirit or whatever, you know, but not everything that goes bump in the night can just be a ghost. You know what I mean? Like, so.
Yeah. I like Dan's point here. He said he's quoting our friend Vic Cundiff, actually. What's up, Vic? So Dan says, like Vic Cundiff says, if these things wanted you gone, there's nothing you could do about it. The fact that you are here safe and sound gives me a lot of confidence. Glad you're safe and sound. Thank you. I'm glad they're safe and sound too. I'm glad I'm safe and sound too.
When people say like, it was, you know, it wanted to kill me and this and that, and like, you know, maybe it wanted to, but it didn't. Like if they wanted to take you out, they just would. You would never see it coming. You would never, you know what I mean? Because they can sneak right up on you, like.
They sure could. And honestly, when I was out in Tennessee this past weekend, we were camped out at a cemetery, actually, where dogmen have been spotted, seen, encountered, and Bigfoots too, actually. And let's just say that I was just not comfortable there. I mean, it was fine. I had a really good time, but it was like, you know, I knew that something was watching my every single move. Every single move. I couldn't do anything without having eyes on me from something out there. And we even had some things that came into camp actually at some point out there. Lots of cryptid activity. And if something would have wanted to get us, we were, I joke around about being cryptid bait. Well, we all put ourselves out there as bait, basically, whether we mean to or not. When we're out there, we think that we're out there investigating these cryptids, but if they wanted, they're investigating us, is what it is. We're using ourselves. They're looking at us as bait, kind of. Yeah, as a tasty snack if they want us.
Yeah. Well, that's why at night, like when it comes to night stuff, I if you don't know the area especially or whatever, like I suggest just making like a big campsite. The bigger the better, because you're giving yourself a wider range. But like bring them in, let them come in, maybe play a little music, whatever, and then get quiet. But bring them in, because walking around is you're just leaving yourself susceptible to so many things, even just self-injury or whatever the case may be. But it's similar to, I always say it's similar to like chumming for sharks, right? Like you could drive around the ocean all day and never see a great white or a shark, but you can find ways to bring them in, and I don't know, you get my drift.
You do. I did want to mention this comment. Hey, Marty's in the chat today, and I got to meet Marty up at a UFO conference up in North Georgia recently. Cool. And we had a good time up in Blue Ridge. And so Marty said she was talking about a cave. She was talking about a cave that it is blocked off now. Okay, and I'm bringing this up because when we were up in Tennessee, I was at Tennessee in another investigation, that Skinwalker Cave investigation that I did a couple of years ago. It was the same team I was with this weekend. We were up there and we were noticing that inside this cave that we were in, it had been parts of it were blocked off and kind of concreted over, just like you guys were talking about it happened at Montauk. And it made me wonder, like, well, what are they blocking off? Are they keeping something in? Are they keeping us from going, or are they keeping us from going in? Or are they keeping something from coming out? That's a really interesting question, I think. And also, if you can find pictures online of a lot of cave entrances that have rebar over them, like a cage. You got to wonder, like, what are they doing? Are they keeping something out? Are they keeping something from coming out? Or are they keeping us from going in?
There's just a couple of caves I went in as a kid. One was like the lemon squeeze, where I went in through with some strangers because nobody in my family would go through. But like I've seen those
lemon squeeze is good. Yeah, I know that one. I
remember bars like that in a few spots, so I was just adding in that. But
there's a place where used to be an old quarry up in Kingston, New York, and they turned it into a like park now where you can walk around, whatever. And they have this long trail that goes up, and it's really nice, and it goes to this cool overlook. It overlooks the Hudson and everything, but you could tell there's so much history there. But there's one spot where you go past, and there's a cave, and it has this huge fence around it, and I had to get back there and see what was going on and try to get down. But I mean, it's really sketchy. Like, you can't even get a couple of good, like, there's some spray paint on the wall at one point, and I'm like, I don't even know how somebody got there. And I'm like, I don't know how they pulled that off. They had to be literally like jumping and like ballsy and young or something, because anyway, but it just goes, and you have no idea where it goes, And I think it's more for our safety. Like, don't go and like push that limit. You know what I mean? Because we don't know what the hell's going to come out. And there's even another Howe Caverns is upstate as well, and then next to it is called there's one called the Secret Cave, which I've gone to. And the way that one was found was a farmer was looking for his cows, and two of them were missing. They fell through the ground, and he was like, what the hell did they fall into? They fell into a cave. This old man spent, well, he wasn't that old at the time, but he spent like 50 years digging this cave out. And then eventually he turned it over to, for tourists to come and do stuff. But it when you get down in there, and it's amazing, and it's crazy. And at the end, there's a underground waterfall.
That's right.
It's underground water. It's like a 90, I forget, but it's insane when you think about it. So why couldn't something live down there? Maybe come up, snatch a deer, go back down, snatch a livestock, go back down. maybe there's a million spots right under us that no cows have fell through yet,
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
so
That maybe that's where these missing people are going, as
Yeah.
well.
They-
for
So just
entertainment
coming up and grabbing
purposes.
them.
That's
For
definitely
entertainment purposes only. That's right. That's right. Well, this has been a fantastic conversation, you guys. I always
Yeah.
enjoy having y'all here. And I
likewise.
know this is kind of one of my shorter shows because, got to go get my kid and stuff during
Yep,
the daytime shows. But if everybody would like more information on Camp Hero and the things that are going on Long Island, in Montauk, please go and check out Brian Minnick's book, you guys. It's called Montauk is Strange. Brian, would you like to tell the audience about your book and your YouTube channel?
Yeah, sure. I'll briefly, our YouTube channel has the old videos we have from the 90s. Plus, we've been going there ever since with all kinds of people and try to load each video with info and stuff, and a lot of info. And then the book is just like a collection of all the research over the years. There's regular chapters with a whole bunch of things to back it up, but there's also like blueprints, maps, documents, and there's a whole section of like all of our trips there in order. Half of them because I still have more, but there's also a whole section of stories from locals and like the entire military history is kind of like a college report, just everything I could find in the press. And, I have a whole paranormal section, parapsychology, like psychic powers and UFOs, ghosts, cryptids, everything, ancient stuff, ancient Egypt ties, ancient cities, and everything that I could find on this subject, I tried to jam in here. So that's basically it.
Well, I love that you have made the connection now to ancient Egypt up there as well. That is something that I am just fascinated by.
Me
and
too.
I've been talking about it a lot lately too.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
I'm going to watch back what I missed.
Heck yeah. Yeah,
Cool.
we talked about it on Monday, actually.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
I love that stuff. Yeah. I can't get enough of it. So
I know, and all these weird experiments that are going on up there, and it is, you guys, for anyone who is not familiar, Brian is the go-to person for information on Montauk in the Camp Hero, just the whole area over there, and of course, and then we've also got our Bigfooter down here on the screen, Mr. Long Island Bigfoot as well, who is the resident Bigfooting expert down there. Okay, the Bigfoot guide.
That's kind of why
well.
I even Brookhaven, anything history with this guy. That's why I just kind of said Brookhaven lads and then stepped out of the way because he just knows stuff.
it's crazy because
Exactly.
we used to go to Brookhaven, to Montauk Point when we were kids, where families would go and we'd park, they would park in the lighthouse parking lot. And one of the people we would go with was the head scientist at B&L and stuff. So like, just because we live on Long Island, there's a lot of military industrial stuff. So you always know people in the family that were working at places or like family friends that were, I knew somebody that worked at Camp Hero, et cetera. So we're just kind of locals too. That's part of the reason that we were able to go there so many times, or like first stumbled on it. Mike was out there as a kid too. We just didn't know the full extent,
No idea.
I was actually a little disappointed that there was not a Demogorgon statue in the middle of Montauk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What the hell?
I remember when I think I was driving and you're like, why isn't there a Demogorgon on the lawn here? And I'm like,
you can't even find a single radar in the gift shops anywhere, like on a sticker or a shirt, nothing.
They don't want it part of the history. Like they don't want people that ruins their cash cow. If you see, people flood there. I think it's like 30,000 people over the course of 2 months go to that town and just pay.
It would bring in maybe they were worried to bring in a different a different crowd, because it's kind of a ritzy area. I mean, I'm going to say it's a lot of people with money stay there.
It's like
we can't afford to go out. Like we don't go out there usually in the summer because we can't afford it.
Yeah,
Like so it's that's exactly what it is though. It's like I don't know.
Most well-off.
And then you have New York City people who want to get away, so some go upstate, and then others go out there, and it is what it is,
Yeah. Well, I had a good time there. We had a nice house out there that we stayed in, and with Brian and the whole Full Disclosure Now movement crowd and the Montauk survivors.
Yeah.
So that was a powerful trip.
We're usually laying in ticks on the ground, so that worked well for us too.
Yeah.
They're like, "You sure you want to stay in the garage?" I'm like, "I'm good."
That was fun.
I'm good here.
I can't believe we all stayed in that same house together. That was wild. Yeah, it was a good time. But okay, so everybody can get your book at. I've got the link here, and it's been in the chat today. So if anybody wants to click that link, it's bookbaby.com.
You can get the ebook like anywhere, like Amazon, all those, anywhere online. Everywhere online. It's
okay. So just look up Montauk is Strange, y'all, and it comes up. I promise. I looked it up today, and it was the first thing that popped up was the picture of your book, Brian.
Thank you so much. I appreciate
of course. Well, we got to support. Listen, you put a lot of work into that, and you were my official tour guide. You and Mike were my official tour guides at Montauk. Yeah, and Long Island Bigfoot. What's up with you? Tell everybody where they can find you.
War Woman Goods.
Thank you. That's fine. I'm gonna have to make you a co-partner on that because you always promote my shop every time you come on my show.
I don't know. I'm on, you know where I am. I'm right here. I'm on YouTube, but come by if you want. That's it.
Oh yeah, he's boots on the ground, y'all, and Bigfoot research and Dogman, and you can also find him quite often over on Vic Kunda's show, Dogman Encounters, as well. Mike's had a lot of experience with Dogman, y'all know, because he's been on my show a good bit, and we always have fun, y'all. This has been a really fun show today, really informative. Actually, I always learned from you guys every time y'all come on. And so thank y'all so much for that. And thank you to Maureen and Gus for the super sticker, and Tracy, thank you for becoming a member of the Hunt Club today. And I hope you guys will come back and hang out with me again soon. And
always. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we'll do it again.
Absolutely.
Okay. Fun. Well, heck yeah. All right, y'all. Well, I've got a wonderful, I don't know what my target is. I've done 4 separate sessions on this target for Barry, and he still hasn't told me what it is yet, but we're going to do a show on it tomorrow.
I think Jack just sent me those coordinates too, so I'll shoot those over to you.
Oh, great.
Maybe we'll do something later.
Okay, perfect. That's with the Cameraman Crew, I think, right?
Yeah.
And so we've got some things in the works, y'all. We got a lot of good shows coming up for everybody. Awesome. But I've got a great show tomorrow night. Come back and see me at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific tomorrow night with a great target. And then Saturday night, I've got an all-star list that night as well. We're going to have Drewski with Cryptid Warfare, Harley Owens. We're going to have Riley with Midwest Mythos, and Kevin with Where the Weird Ones Are podcast. And we were all out there in East Tennessee together this past weekend, and we have a lot to discuss on Saturday night. So y'all come back and see me for that too. Man, it's awesome. All right, everybody. Have a great day, Brian.
You
Mike,
too.
Thank y'all so much for being here. You guys, please stay safe out there. Don't live in fear. Go explore though. And you know, I know you guys live vicariously through us sometimes, and but get out there too. We all need some fresh air and some grass under our feet. Okay, y'all. Everybody have a great day, and I will see you guys tomorrow night. All right. Thanks, guys.
Be there.
Bye, y'all.